All right, everybody, welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. And thank you again for your company. I really do appreciate all of you guys who've been sending in your SMSs. Let me touch on a few more of them. Someone here is saying, wow, what a way to begin the week. The story of Joseph is just epic. That's Steve Kidero watching from Kerugoya. Asante sana for that. Someone else says, Pastor Kongole, your message is amazing. God bless you. Another says, and you know what? The brothers had to throw him in the pit next to the road of Israel. Yani God huwa amepanga everything. I believe there were other pits around. That's a great observation. I certainly do think so too. That's the specific one where when the traders were passing, that's where they found him. Absolutely nothing escapes God's attention. Every detail of our lives he sees and he holds in his hands. So be encouraged to everybody who's going through a really tough time. Just keep trusting and believing in him. Remember, we have a new SMS line, 111 444 111. And you can also comment on our social media at Switch TV Kenya. For now, though, let's meet our next guest. And we want to talk about the era of online learning and how it's actually changing the face of education. With me here, I have Philip Machoka, who's the lecturer of Information Systems and Technology at the School of Science and Technology at USIU here in Nairobi. Karibu sana to the show.
Asante.
All right. So obviously 2020 and COVID has disrupted many different things, and including the educational sector. I just kind of want to first begin with just looking at how much of an adjustment it has been for learning institutions and for students in general. What would you say have been some of the major challenges that you're seeing?
Some of the major challenges in terms of online learning has really been, first of all, we kind of got disrupted all of a sudden, and we threw the students into online learning almost immediately. And it's something they just had to take up almost immediately as well, given that they didn't have that particular expectation or experience, as opposed to how other countries have actually done before. Remember, online learning has been there for a while, and people who have actually taken online learning have actually done it as a choice. They have either to go to the face-to-face classes, or they have to take an online class. But there is a case where you are told, hey, school has been shut, and the only mode of learning is online learning. So what happens? You are used to the class setup where you have your friends, there's that social presence, and you are working with other students, interacting with each other students. So when that is removed away from you, and you are told probably you are working from home, which is not really a conducive environment, as opposed to if you are in that particular setup that you are always used to. Remember, you have grown all along having people around you,
Right.
and you are all interacting with one another.
Sure.
You are talking with your lecturers or teachers,
Okay.
and all that is removed away from you.
Okay.
So that's a challenge.
But as you've mentioned, certainly it's not something new. I think Canadian educators have actually been using e-learning for a while. They call it blended learning because they kind of mix it in with in-class learning. But in Kenya, as you've said, for many it's been a choice. It's not been, and much less so after university or college. It's always, before that, we've always been very accustomed to in-person learning.
Traditional learning.
Yeah,
Yes.
traditional learning.
Yes.
But considering a lot of countries have actually employed this before, what then are some of the benefits? You've mentioned, of course, some of the challenges, but are there any particular benefits?
Yeah, the benefits are actually immense. Given that you are able to learn at your own time, you can choose the timing. Also, in terms of especially those people who are working, I work from, let's say, 8 to 5, and I don't have the luxury of going to class between that time. But you can take classes after work, 8 to 5, and then what happens here is that you're able to even reduce the commute time. For example, if probably you are going to leave Mombasa Road going to maybe Kasarani for school, it might take you not less than 1.5 hours to get there.
Yeah.
But after, if you can do that online, all I just have to is to finish my work and get to my computer and have maybe my 1.5 to 3 hours lecture.
Would you say those benefits extend though to people who are in university, they're pursuing their first degrees?
Yeah, online learning basically has been had an impact, especially in the postgraduate. That's where it has been applied most of the time. But now we are seeing that, especially with this COVID era, now we actually have even from the kindergarten going all the way up to the university.
Yeah.
Yeah, but primarily it was more at the university level,
Right.
starting with the graduate going up, but then also cascading down
Right.
into the undergraduate degree courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the ones who are below postgraduates, then, do you? I guess the major challenge there is how practical it will be for students to learn.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Because there's not this interaction.
The interaction
with
is
the
lacking.
lecturers and the students. So aside from that, do you see any benefits really?
Yeah, especially at the lower level.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are benefits in the sense that, like in this kind of period where we're in a crisis, where that you can actually still, learning can continue without disrupting the learning process. But then further to that, there are also challenges in the sense that those students are actually not, the curricula were not designed for that kind of a
online
setup.
learning.
Yeah, so it has to be done really quickly, and some of the principles or the theories behind learning have not actually been applied appropriately. So actually what we are doing currently is not in the pure sense as online learning, but is an emergency remote teaching.
Okay.
Just to save the situation,
Okay.
because there's a whole lot of science that goes behind online learning.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, then there's also the disparities. You know, you have to think about if everybody can afford the tools and the implements needed to actually have online learning facilitated, and that definitely has been a humongous struggle as well.
Correct. Yeah, and actually that is really one of the biggest challenges that we have. And it's not only here in Kenya. You may be surprised, even in the Western world, they still are talking about those challenges.
Yeah.
Students don't have access to maybe a laptop. There are students actually who live in remote area. They have challenges accessing internet. There are challenges with electricity. And if those kind of challenges are there, you can imagine how they can be compounded, especially in our local context.
Right.
Yes.
So I guess considering the situation we're in, of course, we're seeing things slowly begin to open up. There's a lot of debate about if schools should open up as well, you know, as soon as possible. Here in Kenya, kind of considering our context with economic challenges, development challenges, infrastructural challenges, as well as far as tech and access to internet and data.
Correct.
Do you foresee a place for online learning below postgraduate studies? Is that something you would sort of encourage government to pursue?
Yeah, we should actually encourage, and actually this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. Consider this. The kind of disparity we have in terms of a student who is learning in an academy here in Nairobi, being tested in the same syllabus with a student who is far removed in the remote area, maybe in the northeastern. And if we had the online learning platform and we are able to connect this student here in an academy in Nairobi, and that particular student may be in northeastern, they should be able to get the same learning material as that particular student over there. Like, for example, we've had these teachers being withdrawn from that, let's say like Garissa, because of insecurities. Then what does that mean? Learning stops. But what about if we connected this schools, and learning the instructions could actually be conducted from Nairobi, and then using the technology, we're able to have those students with their local maybe instructors over there who can support those kids, and the learning can actually continue. Then we don't have to have this kind of disruption, that there is insecurity, learning has to stop, and then they have to even take more time to catch up before we can actually get maybe an instructor on the other side. Yeah, so there is a chance of actually having online learning play a role as even of to students who are below the postgraduate secondary education.
But what would that cost look like? I mean, I know a lot of people try and almost position it as cheaper, because we're looking at, there's obviously opportunity cost, you know, less commute time and whatnot, but there are other costs that you don't necessarily factor in with traditional learning. So do they sort of even each other out, or is one still more expensive than the other?
Upfront, it will be quite expensive because of the kind of infrastructure. You need the technology, you need not only the laptop, you need the softwares, you need the support. Actually, even support is quite expensive. Like, for example, just developing content for online learning, there's, as I said, you need the subject matter experts, you need instructional designers, you need multimedia experts, and then
UX and all that, because it's supposed to be very interactive. It's not just scanning things and putting them on.
Actually what we call just dumping stuff, so that it needs to be interactive, and it needs to be so descriptive that the student can actually read and be able to follow those instructions and accomplish all the activities that are required without having to call the instructor. And then below that, you have then a whole array of technical support that needs to be in place, so that learning can actually be effective, from those people supporting your learning management systems to the internet services and any issues that you may have. And actually, because learning can take any time, somebody can even wake up at midnight and start learning, and they run into a problem, or even an instructor doing something at that point in time, and they need support. So you may need a 24-hour support. So the initial investment is high, but over time the benefits are even higher.
Wow. So clearly we still have a long road ahead of us, and it sounds like it's not just us, but most people around the world, most economies do as well. But thank you very much for being a part of the show, and I guess just kind of shedding some light on this. In many ways it feels like this would allow us to do a lot more critical thinking, because now the student is on their own and kind of has to think through issues and questions themselves, rather than kind of fully relying on a teacher or their peers to, you know, contribute answers. So the benefits could extend far beyond what we can see.
Critical thinking, creative thinking, and actually in this case you are not only confined to the content that is just given to you by your instructor, but the content is just as so much out there in the web. As you can see, you cannot even get support from even outside your locality. Yes.
Mr. Philip Machoka, thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Thank you.
It's been great talking to you, and we do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. With that said, guys, we're going to take a break as we get ready for the second hour of the show. Still coming up, we have a conversation about dealing with the new realities of working from home, and later on we're going to have Christine Casina joining us here in studio as we talk about her big heart for fitness. 111 444 111 is the new SMS line. You can also reach me on social media at Switch TV Kenya, and we'll be back after this.